And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Wednesday, November 6th. I am Josh Engleman, here to break down a 10-game slate on DraftKings and a 12-game slate on FanDuel. We had no basketball yesterday. We've got 12 games going on today. Feels a lot like Monday, a little bit shorter. At least we don't have everything starting every 15 minutes. But DraftKings dropped 2 10 o'clock games. You're done at 9 o'clock on DK. On the FanDuel side, though, you get it all. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engleman. What's going on, everybody? Basketball is back. I don't like when we get days off. I mean, I like when we get days off, but I wish I got a day off, but basketball was still here. Oh my God, Louis Diaz, baby. Hat trick. So you'll enjoy this. Past 2 games. Brighton on the weekend and then Leverkusen yesterday. I didn't have, Brighton game, I wasn't wearing red, but we had red on. Yesterday, I just had a hoodie on. First half, wasn't great for Brighton. First half here, nothing done. 60-minute mark, both days. I switched to a throwback red kit to match the team on the weekend. And then yesterday, threw on the red Mo Salah. Immediately, both times, we had 2 goals in 2 minutes. It was amazing. Made me so happy. Yesterday was awesome. Leverkusen never loses, man. I don't think anybody gives a shit about my soccer preferences. Right now, we got a lot of NBA to talk about. Nothing interesting happened else yesterday, other than Liverpool winning, I think. But it's time to break it down. We got a lot to talk about. Talk about the schedule for the rest of the day. We are a little light on the promos right now, but that's okay. We can't be giving them out every single second of every single day. Just gonna have to have somebody else win $1 million, you know? But for now, damn right, Anfield knows when the goals are coming. All right, here we go. The Detroit Pistons are 2-point dogs in Charlotte. 225 total. Pistons don't have any injury news. Hornets, no Mark Williams, obviously. Nick Richards, also out. Right first rib fracture. Probable tag on Cody Martin. Yeah, I saw that tweet about Leverkusen only losing twice. Well, now 3 times since Jordan Henderson left. Yeah, I had Liverpool money line. I had Louis Diaz to score a goal, but I had over 4.5 corners, and that didn't happen, which was very annoying. Okay, let's talk Pistons. Full strength. I don't think there's a ton here that we need to go crazy about, but there are some pieces that look really good. Cade is 8,500 on DK. 8,700 on FanDuel. He's around 15% owned on both sites. Tobias Harris is around 10 across both sites. Way cheaper on DraftKings, though. They're only one position. And then Jaden Ivey, 10% on DraftKings, 20 on FanDuel. Looks solid. After that, we get a little bit of love to Jalen Duren and basically nothing else for the Pistons. Now, defensively, great matchup. And neither one of these teams is any good on the defensive side. I mean, neither one of these teams is really any good on the offensive side either, but I'm expecting to see a pretty sizable offensive day here because I just don't think either team can stop anybody. If I'm taking someone from the Pistons, honestly, it might be Tobias Harris. 5,800 is pretty cheap. At 13%. Like, obviously, Cade is the best play because we're talking about a guy projected for 10 plus more fantasy points than anybody else on the team. So I certainly have my eye on Cade. Not a ton of defense on the opposite side to slow him down. It's certainly not LaMelo Ball. But I think I would go Cade, Tobias, and then Jaden Ivey if I'm ranking these guys on DraftKings. On the FanDuel side, I think it's probably Ivey ahead of Harris just because he's $300 cheaper, still has the MPE. I know a lot of people are going to be talking about Jalen Duren today. 5,900 on DraftKings, 6,100 on FanDuel. I'm just nervous about his minutes. They've been all over the place. 24, 33, 18, 11, 29. We've seen Beef Stew start to get a little bump. They basically split all of the minutes last time out. So any foul trouble, they immediately go to Stewart and they don't care. If Stewart's just playing better, they can go to Stewart and it doesn't matter. So it's not that I don't like Jalen Duren, because clearly in a matchup against a team that doesn't have a center, that looks really good for him, particularly on the boards. He should have a clean path. But admittedly, I do find Isaiah Stewart to at least be like should we pay attention to that thing? He's not a good per minute dude. Duren is a way better fantasy player. But if they're going to start munching these guys' minutes in both directions and Stewart gets a little bit more and Duren gets a little bit less, that's at least a point to pause on. But right now, the matchup clearly favors Jalen Duren. Centers against Charlotte have always been a thing. You can't look at that every year. That's not how life works. These are different teams. But from a size perspective, we got it here. Grant Williams is 6'7". Diabate's 6'11", but he weighs 30 pounds less than Grant Williams. So that's interesting. Yeah, S&P. I wouldn't expect it to move. I don't think it's nothing. We're talking about a team that had no real players. Now you have Tobias Harris, who's like a 20% usage guy. Ivy's out there for 30 plus minutes every night as increased usage. Cade's a 30% dude. You want Malik Beasley to shoot anytime he can touch the ball and have an open look, because Malik Beasley 3 is incredibly valuable. At that point, you're just running out of options for Duren. So that's the Pistons. The Charlotte side is wildly unappealing. There is no ownership coming into these dudes on either side, DraftKings or FanDuel. 5% to Miles Bridges on FanDuel is the only ownership of note, and that is not of note. Now, we do have a Q tag. Oh, actually, we don't have a Q tag on Brandon Miller anymore? That's interesting. I'll take that away. Give me 1 second. I could have swore Brandon Miller was questionable for today. Maybe that went away at some point during the middle of the night. All right. Brandon Miller Q tag gone. If I'm going to someone in this game, it's absolutely Grant Williams. 4,500 on DraftKings, power forward center eligible, best point per dollar play on Charlotte today. They need him to play bigger minutes for sure. I went 28, could easily play a little bit more as long as he stays out of foul trouble. And he's basically unowned. So that's a guy that I'd love to take a flyer on in the larger field GPPs. DraftKings and FanDuel, I think, are both running a $5 today. I think there's 90,000 entries in the DraftKings side. So Grant Williams is the type of play at no ownership that I don't mind rolling those dice. S&P, exactly. I don't anticipate getting to LaMelo or Bridges or Miller or Mann in any way. I don't think these guys are grading out all that great. Salaries are just a little bit too high here. I think that has something to do with the fact that Brandon Miller was out for a bit. All these guys are a little bit inflated. So I'm not really paying much attention to Charlotte. It's really going to be Cade, Tobias Harris, Jaden Ivey, and then whatever the hell you guys want to do with Jalen Duren today. Orlando Magic, 6.5 point dogs in Indiana, 226 total. I can comfortably say I would bet the Magic on this one. I have the line 4 points lower than what the market is showing. I think the Orlando defense isn't getting enough respect, even with no Banchero. Offense is terrible. Like, there's no offense to speak of for Orlando. The defense is still really good, even with no Wendell Carter Jr., because you can go to Goga and, solve the same problems. Meanwhile, Indy is sort of like these two teams are polar opposites. So this is an interesting battle because Orlando is one of the worst offenses and one of the best defenses, and Indy is one of the best offenses and one of the worst defenses. So very interesting dynamic in this game. Bunch of ownership coming in on the Orlando side. As I mentioned, no Banchero, no Wendell Carter Jr. 20% ownership coming into Suggs on DK. He's 6,900 there and 7,900 on FanDuel. Not exactly an appealing price tag on the FanDuel side, but he looks good on DraftKings. Like 12% ownership coming into Franz Wagner across both. Make it 15. 7,600 FanDuel, 7,700 DraftKings. Looks solid. Not a problem to me. I am a little lighter on his points, though. The guy that I think we need to talk about here is Tristan da Silva. We have him at 12% ownership on DraftKings. Da Silva started against the Thunder. He played 10 minutes in the second quarter and 7 and change in the first. So that's 18 minutes in the first half. Got another 7-minute rotation in the third quarter. That takes him to 25. And then played 8.5 more with all the starters. They didn't deviate. So I gave him 30 minutes. If Tristan da Silva is a 30-minute guy today, at 3,900, love that value. Improves a little bit because of the matchup, pace up spot for Orlando. But that's like, do I expect him to be good? No, he's young. He's a rookie. It's not going to be outstanding. 3,900 in a starting role, if he's still in that starting lineup, I'd rather, he's a guy that I desperately want to get to. I also really want to get to Goga, very low ownership. 4,800 on DK, 4,800 on FanDuel, 1.1 fantasy points per minute, only 4% owned. The two guys I have my eye on most are certainly Da Silva and Goga Bitadze. But, I will be getting Suggs. I will be getting Franz Wagner. But I think Silva and Goga are the most interesting names here. McNasty, they'll be back tomorrow. I rebuilt my entire sheet yesterday. But I didn't port over my optimal scripts yet. I just ran out of time yesterday. But they'll be back for tomorrow. I just didn't have a chance to run them. I was going to say they'll be back for the deeper dive. That's not true. All the optimals for at least the top 10 dudes will be out when I post contenders. If we had less games today, we would probably have it. Now on the indie side, we are waiting on the Q tag for Andrew Nembhard. We have no Aaron Nesmith still. And then I don't know what's in the water in Indy, but if I'm Miles Turner, I'm putting double walking boots on everywhere I go. Torn left Achilles for James Wiseman. Torn right Achilles for Isaiah Jackson. So Indy very thin when it comes to big men right now. Probably a benefit to Ben Shepherd and Jarris Walker. But for right now, no double-digit ownership to anybody on DraftKings. 17 to Mathurin on FanDuel. And 12 to Pascal Siakam on FanDuel. But it's single digits everywhere else. To be honest, I think Indy may be like a hair underrepresented here. I like Halliburton a little bit at that 8K price tag. He continues to just be a real big thorn in my side. But the interesting part of Halliburton is he hasn't really been deviating the way that I thought he would. Let's see. Close enough. Like, for Indy, Halliburton is basically taking the same amount of twos per 100 possessions so far. Basically taking the same amount of threes I would expect. Getting to the line a little bit more frequently. but nothing too crazy. He just stinks now, which is weird. Not getting any love. I don't mind him in large field GPPs. I think Miles Turner certainly looks a little interesting here at 6,200. Matherin's fine. Siakam's fine. Turner's fine. Even Nembhard, if he plays, is worth a look at least. If he's not in, that changes the equation a little bit more. But all these guys are, it's Halliburton at 5, Siakam 9, Matherin 7, Turner 9. I think all of these guys should be in and around 10% owned. So I like the Indy side a little bit, but the defensive matchup isn't going to be fun. If I'm only picking one dude from Indy, TJ McConnell for 4,200 is a really nice point per dollar play too. I don't mind that, especially if Nembhard ends up out. If I'm taking one guy from Indy, it's probably Siakam. 7,600, dual eligibility. He's got power forward center on DraftKings. He's 7,700 on FanDuel. I think he's sort of the best combination of upside, price, and positionality. I have no problem rolling the dice on Matherin, but not the best per minute dude in the world, but still looks good and absolutely going to get his shots up. Travis got the dub in the mini-max on Monday. Thanks for the analysis. Let's run it back. Sick, man. Sick. I think I saw that on Twitter. I'm sure I did. I've already forgotten everything that happened 2 days ago from one day off, but congrats. That's what I want to hear. But keep your eye on the Nembhard news. That'll be the most important piece of this one on the Indy side, because that could free up additional minutes for Shepard, Walker, McConnell, somebody else. Yeah, Michael, same for me, brother. Same for me. All right, New York Knicks, 7-point favorites in Atlanta, 225 total. For the Knicks, no Precious still, no Mitchell Robinson still. Look, Campaign is listed as questionable, and I have him in right now. I don't expect that dude to play. I actually think he's going to be out a little bit longer. Maybe that changes. Probably doesn't matter all that much. City, Too Shore, Exterior Solutions, Ball Trap. He'll be in foul trouble covering Cade. There's no chance LaMelo Ball is guarding Cade Cunningham. Zero. Zilch. Nada. Not even close. Won't guard him at all. We got to stop thinking about it like a point guard guards a point guard. Neither one of those. There's no chance LaMelo Ball is guarding Cade. Let's talk Knicks. It's a Josh Hart day. Again, 6,300 on DraftKings, 6,900 on FanDuel. It's 15% owned on FanDuel, 20 on DK. I don't see how you ever want to get away from him. Playing 38 plus minutes, hits every statistical category. Can get there in many different ways. It's never fun. 0.95 guy. It all looks good. So get to Josh Hart, but don't stop there. I think OG Anunoby looks exceptional at 5K on DraftKings. He's $900 more expensive on FanDuel. He's got an MPE. He's going to play 37 minutes. Happily getting to Anunoby. I'd happily get to Brunson. He's probably next for me. Then it's Bridges, because he's got a really nice position. But all these guys as point per dollar plays look great. This Atlanta defense is not very good, and New York has one of the 3 best offenses in the league. If they're just going to play 8 dudes and all their best guys are going to play 36 plus minutes, they are going to project like a staggeringly good offense. And that's what they're doing right now. So whether it's Bridges, Hart, Anunoby, Brunson, Towns, any one of those starting 5 dudes, I like them quite a bit. Towns, Brunson, and Bridges really aren't getting that much ownership, so they'll look really nice in those larger field GPPs. But Josh Hart deserves his ownership. And I could argue that OG Anunoby deserves more. Guru, quick question about Hornets. If Williams doesn't start at center, you still have interest in him? On Monday, they started Taj, looked like a 3-center rotation. Yeah, I do. I don't think they have much of a choice. And I can certainly understand why you go a slightly different direction against Rudy Gobert. Not that Jalen Duren isn't a big dude, but Gobert is a different thing altogether. But, we got 22 minutes out of Grant Williams. Didn't play in the fourth. Game was over by the time the fourth quarter started. It was essentially just a shit ton of full stop blowout run. So I think he's getting 28 minutes today, barring blowouts either direction, and 2-point line. I'm not sweating it. The Atlanta side is unowned, and they should be. 4% to Jalen Johnson on FanDuel is the highest mark of anybody on Atlanta on either site. There's actually no ownership coming into Atlanta in any way. And I completely agree with it. This team is walking wounded. They have like 1.5 good players, at least offensively. There's no chance I'm rostering people from Atlanta unless they're just like random lineup GPP pivots. Jalen Johnson would be the guy that I have my eye on most. But, I mean, this team is just really not good. Still no Bogdanovich, no Kobe Buffkin, no Vic Krejci, no Seth Lundy. We do have a Q tag on DeAndre Hunter, which for some strange reason I didn't project him in, but it doesn't matter. And then Muhammad Gay is also questionable for today. But there's not a single priority to speak of anywhere for Atlanta. I have next to no interest. I've probably talked about them more than I should. Game number 4. Another team that we will not be rostering today. The Golden State Warriors are 7-point dogs in Boston, 230 total. This is the second highest total on the DraftKings slate. 1% ownership to Steph on DK is all of the ownership coming into the Warriors. Still no Melton. Everybody else available. I have absolutely no idea what they're doing with their rotation. Everybody plays. Nobody plays a lot. There's no ownership on the FanDuel side either. Golden State is a giant cross-off. Just draw a line through every single name you see. Boston's quite different. So still no Jaylen Brown. Obviously no Kristaps Porzingis. 15% ownership coming into Jason Tatum across both sites. Absolutely sign me up for that. I am nervous about the Golden State defense. I think it's a very much underrated defense to the public. But it's Jason Tatum. He looks fantastic. And there's no Jaylen Brown. So everything changes about his role. We also have about 10% ownership coming into Derek White. I mentioned this on Monday. He is the guy that gets the biggest rate bump with Jaylen Brown out. And to me, Derek White is the easiest guy to get to from Boston. Drew looks really nice at 5,600. Have absolutely no issue going there. Peyton Pritchard is grabbing like around 8% ownership. He looks really good at 5,200. And then it all sort of comes down to who starts today at center. We got Kada last time out. Maybe we get Luke Cornett here today. I only gave Kada 19 minutes, and he is still the overwhelming point per dollar play coming from Boston. 40% ownership coming into Kada on DK, 23 on FanDuel. This is an absolutely excellent value option center if he's starting. If he's not starting, you're not going to feel as interested. You'll probably have a little bit more love for Luke Cornett. And I expect Cornett to play more minutes than Kada, no matter the scenario here, no matter who starts. But yeah, Kada is just a high-level point per dollar play today if he is in the starting lineup. Yeah, Jeremy, I really like Derek White here, especially at only 9% ownership on DraftKings. He sees a really sizable usage bump when Jaylen Brown is off the floor. All right, let's hit another one. San Antonio Spurs. 6.5-point dogs in Houston. 213.5 total. This is the lowest total of any game on the entire slate, all 12. And it's lower than Philly and the Clippers by 5 points. This is ultra defensive-ish. Really not that great of offense. Houston a lot better than San Antonio's offense is terrible. And really, really slow matchup. So We can start on the San Antonio side. We do have news here. Trey Young. Trey Jones is still out. Devin Vassell still out. Jeremy Sohan is now out. He broke his thumb. He's going to be out like 6 weeks, at least, I think. So you would think we would create a bunch of value from San Antonio, but that doesn't appear to be happening. The highest owned guy is Chris Paul, 15% on DK at 5,900, 10% on FanDuel at 6,300. He looks like a solid play, but nobody I'm going crazy for. As always, you can clearly get to Wemby whenever you want, but it's really limited ownership, and I don't have anybody from San Antonio that just stands out. Castle started the second half in Sohan's place on Monday. Assuming Castle starts, he's going to be a terrible per minute dude, but shooting guard, small forward, 4K. I kind of like him if he's only 5% owned because I think they're going to just play him more minutes. San Antonio has no reason to not see what they have, and if they're going to be missing a backup point guard in Trey Jones, you're starting 2/3 in Devin Vassell, and you're starting 4 in Sohan, you're just at a point now where you might as well throw Castle out there and do what you can. So I think he's a little underrepresented in this first run. 3,900 on FanDuel, too, is pretty appealing. He's probably my most interesting guy, assuming he ends up in the starting lineup. And then, like the Barnacle of the Bay is going to play big minutes. He's a dreadful per-minute fantasy dude. And then Wemby's Wemby. But if I have my eye on anybody, it's Castle, assuming he gets that start. Now, the Houston side is unowned. 4% to a questionable Tari Eason is the most on DK. We did get to 10% ownership on Fred VanVleet on FanDuel. Everybody else is single digits. And there's no love here. Like, Amin Thompson is kind of sneaky. 4,600, point guard, small forward. He's a fantasy point per minute guy. Saw a minutes bump. Could see extra minutes in any random game as well. He'd be the guy I'd want to take a run at, but I don't look at Houston and think that there's anybody that I'm going to be really getting to. Fred VanVleet definitely looks like the best Houston option on the FanDuel side, but there are no priorities coming from the Rockets. In a similar way, there's no priorities coming from San Antonio. This total, this pace, all of it is so wildly unappealing. It's so hard for San Antonio and Houston to drag back the fantasy points they lose out for how slow and how untalented parts of this game are. Interesting game, though. Lots of gross, cross-off type teams. What is it? Atlanta, Golden State, Houston. I mean, there's a couple spots. Charlotte, I think. There's a couple spots on DraftKings where we're not paying attention to these dudes in any way. Kind of wild. All right. Let's see. What's today? The 6th. Bring up the schedule. Let you guys know what we've got going on for today. So, for today, NFL strategy show coming up next. That'll be at 10 a.m. I don't see anything for the NHL on the schedule right now, so if that changes and I get tagged in something, I'll let you guys know. But I'll be back for the deeper dive at 5 o'clock. Live before lock will then start up at 6 p.m. And then playback. It's amazing. Playback.tv/Stokastic. Greg and I will be there. We're going to watch whatever games are on from 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock. We have VIP passes that we can hand out so you guys can watch it too. If you have League Pass, you could just link your account, watch all the games with us. But I'm guessing we're watching a little bit of Orlando, Indiana at 7, and then probably some Knicks, Hawks at 7:30, something like that. So come join us. Full slate of stuff. DraftKings contenders will be up after this. FanDuel contenders, along with the DK contenders, will be posted to my Twitter, probably around 10:30 or so. So lots of content going on today. Limited slate tomorrow, so we're diving in hard today. I think we only have 3 games tomorrow, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Uh, 8 o'clock lock tomorrow. 3 games at 8 p.m. And then that's it. So limited slate tomorrow. And then Friday is stupidity. Once again, we've got 11. DraftKings will undoubtedly, I would expect DraftKings to drop at least 2 of those games and take it down. Wait, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Oh my God, 13 games on Friday. I counted incorrectly. Probably an 11 game slate on DraftKings. But yeah, tomorrow, Blazers, Spurs, Wolves, Bulls, and Jazz, Bucks. Okay. That's definitely a slate. Couldn't disagree more, Brian. Couldn't disagree more. Give me all of the late swap. It's the best thing going. Best thing going. Not close. Los Angeles Lakers. They are 1-point dogs in Memphis. 229 total. This one's a little tricky right now. Hard to totally dig in. We do have a Q tag on Anthony Davis, left heel contusion. Brian, you should want it too. It's good. It's equally as good for you. Reeves is probable. Russell's probable. Still no Christian Wood. Still no Jared Vanderbilt. 20% ownership coming into LeBron. 15 on FanDuel. 10 coming into AD on DraftKings. Just north of 15 on FanDuel. And then single digits for everybody else. I'm more interested in Austin Reeves every day than the public seems to be, so I wouldn't be surprised if I end up a little bit heavier on him. Same kind of story for D'Angelo Russell, particularly in that large field GPP. But like most days, I'm not like super excited to get to LeBron. Obviously, if Anthony Davis ends up out, everything changes here. We end up playing a whole bunch of Jackson Hayes. LeBron completely changes. Rui probably looks a little bit better. So there's a potential for the Lakers to look a lot different. But as I see it right now, I prefer AD to LeBron. And I'm guessing that will hold unless Anthony Davis ends up out. 9K for LeBron on DraftKings, 9,400 for him on FanDuel. Totally fine. I understand why he's getting ownership. He's not a bad play. 5.2x the salary on DK, but probably not a guy that I'm going to be getting to 20% of. I'm guessing we're going to have enough other pay up options at lower ownership that I'll be able to pivot to. But I think Reeves looks like the best tournament play. I think he's a little slept on. And then Russell, if you want to get weird. I'm not going to anybody else for the Lakers unless we get AD out and create some value, though. On the Memphis side, I'm not getting to anything. Highest owned dude on either DraftKings or FanDuel is Jaren Jackson Jr., 4% on DK. This is definitely a spot where if AD is in, I have no interest in Zach Edey. If AD is out, I actually think Zach Edey becomes kind of interesting. We sort of saw it last time out. If you can get Zach Edey in a matchup against a like phony center, like not a good one, I think you're in a position to watch him smash. I think he could wreck bad dudes, and it's like, but AD would be a puzzle that he doesn't know how to solve. So if he gets a steady diet of Jackson Hayes today, I think Zach Edey becomes like a really sneaky GPP play. If AD is in, I wouldn't go anywhere near him. But like, I don't think Zach Edey sweats Jackson Hayes. Who was it on Monday? I can't remember. Oh, it was Brooklyn. So like, Nick Claxton is nowhere near big enough to handle the size of Zach Edey, and they had no one else. And that's why I think we saw Edey go 11 of 12 from the field, 25 real points, 12 rebounds, 4 blocks. Those are the types of things that I'm expecting Zach Edey to do in situations where the other team doesn't have a fix for him. That's what I think he is right now. The ultimate the ultimate slate-specific play. Because he is wildly more talented than generic centers and has no ability yet to break down anybody good. Now, for Memphis, like I said, there's no ownership coming in here. They're all random GPP, like, pivots from owned dudes. Whether that's Aldama, Ja, Triple J, Jalen Wells, who doesn't look good at 5,500. I will largely be ignoring the Memphis Grizzlies. If AD ends up out, that probably improves their outlook a little bit. But if AD is in, I don't really want to get to anything from Memphis. I like the pace in this game. Should be a little bit faster than you would expect, but we do have to pay attention to that AD news, because the trickle down there is pretty interesting to me. But yeah, keep your eye on Edey if AD ends up out, because I think he can handle. Jackson Hayes does not have. Honestly, they would probably guard Edey with Rui in that situation, because Jackson Hayes is a twig. I have Zach Edey based on EPM. Zach Edey 7'4", 305 pounds. Jackson Hayes 6'11", 220. I wouldn't be surprised if he got Rui in that matchup. AD always hurt. AD absolutely not always hurt. Do I got to do this every time I see this? Come on. What are we doing here? Can we get rid of that narrative yet? Is that possible? Played 76 games last year. Hasn't missed a game yet. Make a case that AD is never hurt. Yeah, S&P, they might be getting Kennard back today too, so I'm guessing that would go to 10. All right, Cleveland. 8-point favorites in New Orleans, 224 total. We're not going to be able to talk about this one very much. You guys will see that in a second. Injury report for Cleveland. Q-tag Karis LeVert. Q-tag Jalen Tyson. Still no Max Strus. And now Dean Wade is out for today again. There's not really any ownership coming in on the DraftKings side to Cleveland. 7% to Garland is the high mark. Garland is getting a ton of love on FanDuel again at 6,600. I think that paid off quite well on Monday. These guys were also those big four for Cleveland were like the four highest scorers for a while. And then you get Allen, Mobley, and Mitchell in and around 10% on FanDuel. If I'm picking one of them, it's Allen, but he's also center only, so you lose that flexibility. I think Garland is probably the guy I like the most, but any one of those four guys looks interesting to me. And assuming LeVert plays, no one else on Cleveland looks interesting to me. I don't see it. Cleveland is much better on the FanDuel side because you get Allen and Mobley having power forward center. You get that discounted Darius Garland price. And then Donovan Mitchell's just Donovan Mitchell. Use him whenever you want. The Pelican side, though, no Herb Jones, no Carlo Makovich, no CJ McCollum, no Trey Murphy, no DeJounte Murray, Q-tag Zion, Q-tag Jordan Hawkins. They both missed their last game. I'm not entirely sure we can dig into this one in any real way. I think, like if one guy's out and not the other, that changes everything. If they're both out, that changes everything. If they're both in, that changes everything. I don't really love much on New Orleans if they're both in. We are seeing a bunch of ownership coming into Brandon Ingram on FanDuel, but I think that's probably a little context dependent, depending on who's in and who's out. Not that he doesn't look okay, but I'm not really, I don't have much to say about New Orleans in this spot because we just need more information. At the moment, I have both guys in and I won't be getting to New Orleans. That could look very, very different if Zion and Hawkins end up out, and even just one of them could really change the equation of this slate. But we got to wait on that news. Mohammed, I have no interest in Isaac Okoro. If Levert is out, he'll become a guy whose name you can click on. He's a 0.6 fantasy point per minute guy. I would choose to not click on it regardless. I couldn't be less interested in someone like Isaac Okoro. But if Levert ends up out, he does get a minutes bump. He's just terrible. Alrighty. Guys, hit that like button while you're here. 450-ish people in here. We got a bunch of people watching on Twitter as well. No reason you guys can't hit the like button on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. All of that helps a ton. And follow me and follow Stokastic on Twitter if you want updates. All right, Chicago Bulls, 10-point dogs in Dallas, 235 total. This is the clear top total on today's slate. Probably has something to do with the fact that Chicago's defense is bad and Dallas has one of the best offenses in the league. Now, for this game, Josh Giddey is probable. Zach LaVine is questionable, missed the last game. Everybody else that's normally in is in. Lonzo is still out. For Dallas, still no Maxi Kleba. Derek Lively is questionable. He missed the last game. And then PJ Washington is out with a right knee sprain. So there's the best play of the day is coming up next. But we start on Chicago. Obviously, the status of Zach LaVine is massive. If LaVine ends up out, Ayo Dosunmu on DraftKings at 4,400 will be one of the most popular plays today and should be. Kobe White is currently 20% owned on both sites. I do think that Kobe White, if LaVine is in, does look like the best guy you can get to from Chicago. But I think the two names you're going to pay attention to most are are Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White. I want to make sure I put those in the right order. Because if Dosunmu gets no LaVine today at 4,400, that price tag is next level broken. I don't mind getting to Vooch, but there are better centers. I don't mind getting to Giddey. He looks way better on FanDuel. I don't have any interest in Zach LaVine if he is in. So we want to focus everything for Chicago on Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu. And if LaVine is out, Dosunmu is going to be 50% owned today. But we got to talk about the Dallas side because this is the number one play on the day right now. I see no possible way that changes anytime soon. Could look even better, too. We'll start with Luka and Kyrie. Luka's 20% owned on both sites. He's Luka. He looks really good. Kind of prefer Jason Tatum and a little bit of salary savings. I definitely prefer Luka to Kyrie. Don't anticipate getting to a ton of Kyrie. But the guy that we need to talk about most, with no PJ Washington around, we saw a massive minutes bump last time out. And that was even with PJ Washington. We got 34 minutes of Najee Marshall last time out. And he had been playing about 20. But we got 34 last time out. And we got 35 of PJ Washington. With PJ Washington out, I went 32 minutes to Najee Marshall. I've got him projected for 8x his salary. He's 3,400 on DK, small forward, power forward eligible, and 63% owned. Every bit of that is correct. He should be the highest owned guy on the slate. I can't imagine there's a scenario where that changes. I fully expect him to be starting at the 4 today. And I think you just need to get him in basically everything you do. I think it's the easiest button to click. I think the downside is incredibly low. He's very clearly the best guy you can get to and the overwhelming best point per dollar play you'll find. He looks really good on FanDuel as well at 3,900. Doesn't have the MPE, but still 40% owned. You just have to get Najee Marshall. I don't think there's really any argument to not get him if he's in the starting lineup. At this moment, he would be in every single lineup I have today. Full stop. No discussion. Gafford's getting some love on FanDuel. He's 19% owned. That could look really good if Lively ends up out. If Lively's in, I don't want to go that direction. I don't think Lively looks particularly good. I don't want anything else here. Clay on FanDuel's fine. Has the MPE. He's 5,200. He's 10% owned. I think that's reasonable. But it's Najee Marshall, as big of a priority as I could possibly explain to you guys. Number one today. And then it's Luka, and then it's Kyrie, and then it's just a little bit of Clay. But pay attention to the lively news. You would expect more minutes out of Daniel Gafford, at which point then he's going to look like a really nice option. That's a fun spot. Game number 9. Again, this is getting worse and worse for Denver. It's not good. It's not good. You want to see something about Jamal Murray so far this year? I got it on the screen right now. Here. So what I've got here is the EPM projection model per 100 possessions, the Darko projection model per 100 possessions. This is what Jamal Murray has done this season per 100 possessions. Sorry, that's the average of EPM and Darko. This is the stat line for Murray per 100 possessions. Look at what he's been so far. Now, obviously, Jamal Murray is out, concussion protocol. Aaron Gordon is going to be out for a while. He picked up an injury on Monday. This is a big issue. Right calf strain, so he's going to be missing time for a while. Chanchar also doubtful. Jamal Murray is making 35% less twos. He's taking 20% less twos. He's making 37% less threes. And look, these percentages, 20% cut to his 2-point percentage, 20% cut to his 3-point percentage. He's taking 20% less threes so far this season. Now, he is getting to the line a little bit more, which I think is interesting. Look at his assists, down 23% so far this year. Now, he's not coughing the ball up, but like the ball is very clearly not in, or hasn't been in Jamal Murray's hands in the same way it has been in the past. Why in the world did they give him that extension in the offseason? I have absolutely no idea. None whatsoever. Now, OKC, 7-point favorites in Denver, 222 and a half total. OKC, same rotation they always have. I think they're going to be pretty muted here. 6% ownership to Jalen Williams and 5 to 10 on Shea. It's the only ownership that's really coming in this game. I have basically no interest in anybody from Oklahoma City. Their prices look good. I don't think they're going to have to step on the gas here. They're running a 10, 11-man rotation pretty regularly. They're rotating through their guys where, one day Isaiah Joe gets more minutes, and then the next day Aaron Wiggins gets more minutes, and then AJ Mitchell gets a little bit of a bump. So it is a little rough with wanting to get to OKC. Brian, oddly enough, I actually have the line a little bit lower. I actually if I was going to bet one of these sides, I would probably take the 7. I got the line at 6. Nikola Jokic carries a lot of weight. And, Denver home court is no joke. Denver and Utah are the real actual home court advantages because of elevation. I don't expect elevation to matter as much to OKC because of how young they are. But it is a thing. So obviously I mentioned no Aaron Gordon and no Jamal Murray. That is creating this scenario. 30% ownership to Nikola Jokic on DraftKings at 11.7. He's only 7% owned on FanDuel. I love Jokic on DK. Pretty clearly the primary pay-up option today. That dude's going to do it all. I mean, he's probably 50-50 for a triple-double today. I got him at 27.5 points, 13 boards, and 9.5 assists. He looks so damn good. Michael Porter Jr. should just be a little bit more involved. They took off 2 starters. He's 10% owned. But it's the value we have to grab. I mean, Murray's been out for a bit, and we are still straight jamming Russell Westbrook. 75% owned on DraftKings, 30 on FanDuel. and fully deserved. He's 5K on DK. I got him in for 32 minutes. 6.8 fantasy points per $1,000. He looks awesome. I like Najee Marshall as like a play better because he's cheaper. Russell Westbrook is number 2 today on DraftKings. He's the second best option that you can get to, and it's not close. So you're jamming Najee Marshall, you're jamming Russell Westbrook, and you're pretty much jamming Peyton Watson. I gave him 28 minutes, 3,400 on DK, 3,700 on FanDuel. He's 35% owned on FanDuel and just shy of 50 on DK. He looks amazing too. He's sort of like Denver's Najee Marshall, but between Marshall, Watson, and Westbrook, those guys are going to make up. I mean, I would imagine I have 2 of them in just about everything, 3 of them in a lot of stuff. They are, no doubt about it, amazing cash game plays. Jeremy, DFS is different than real life. He's awful in real life. I mean, I got him at a negative 1.1 DPM. That is significantly below average. But he's 5K. And like, he's 6,400 on FanDuel. That's $1,400 more expensive, and he's still 30% owned. That DraftKings price is so incredibly broken for what they need him to do today. So put him everywhere. No doubt about it, cash plays for Russell Westbrook and Najee Marshall. And I think Peyton Watson is going to be there too. And at that point, with all the value, Nikola Jokic immediately goes into your lineup. You can definitely think about rolling dice on Christian Brown or Julian Strother or maybe Hunter Tyson, but none of those guys are going to get a ton of love. I do think Strother is getting underrepresented, unowned on DK, 3,700 shooting guard, small forward. I'm liking Strother. Final game on the DK slate is going to be Miami and Phoenix. Heat are 5-point dogs in Phoenix, 222 total. On the Miami side, no Jaime Jaquez, no Kevin Love. For Phoenix, everybody that's normally available is. We have 20% ownership coming into Tyler Hero, so that's happening again. I do think he looks better than Terry Rozier today, and he has the MPE. I'm happy to get to Bam as a contrarian center. I have no real interest in Jimmy, and I have no real interest in this Miami team. The only guy that I would really anticipate is Hero with quite a bit of love, and then Bam as a pivot. Yeah, it's Hero. And then on the FanDuel side, a little bit of love coming into Butler. It's okay. Hero being $500 more expensive there kind of mutes him on the FanDuel side. Phoenix continues to look like the same team they always are, which is a completely unowned operation. 4% to Booker on DK, 8 to Nurk on both sites, 4 to Booker and Durant on FanDuel. These are guys you swap to when your lineup starts sucking. They don't look like priorities over anybody else in their price ranges. But as your day goes on and as you make more late swaps, you step away from some ownership to try to save some lineups and you go to your Durants and your Bookers. But I don't want Phoenix against Miami. Solid defense for Miami. Really slow pace for Miami. This isn't the best spot for Phoenix. So this is mostly a cross-off game. Yeah, Brian, I would not be clicking Grayson Allen's name in any. To me, he's full stop unplayable on FanDuel. I would never have him. He's unowned, 3.5x value. You got to think he's playing 28 minutes to even think about it. Yeah, S&P. I got some Okoro as well. I finished 12th in the $4.20 max, and that lineup had Okoro. So I could have definitely used a little bit more out of him. All right, final 2 games. Hit that like button. Got to get out of here. NFL strategy show coming up next. These are only on the FanDuel slate. Phillies 2-point dogs in LA, 218 total, second lowest total. Welcome back, Paul George. Revenge narrative alert against the Clippers. Full stop unowned across Philly. 3% ownership to Paul George and Caleb Martin. 2% to Maxey. I don't think Philly looks good in any way. That total is way too low. Now that Paul George is back, that like sort of takes a bite out of Maxey because that's just another guy that can get some shots up. I will not be getting to Philly at all. At all. And I really wouldn't be getting to the Clippers. 7% ownership coming into Zubats. That does look pretty good, but for the rare spot, he actually has a body across from him and Andre Drummond that can handle how big Ivica Zubats is. Looks like a decent center if he's going to be playing 34 minutes. But like Harden's 4% owned doesn't look great. Norm Powell's 5% owned doesn't look great. Speaking of cross-off games, much like Miami and Phoenix, Philly and the Clippers is not a game I'm getting to. You want to play the Paul George narrative? Knock yourselves out. Final game, Toronto Raptors. 10.5-point dogs in Sacramento. 237.5 total. By far the highest total on today's slate. Unfortunately, though, doesn't seem like anybody cares from an ownership perspective. All of the same guys that have been out for Toronto lately are out. 8% ownership coming into RJ Barrett. 4 to Jake Puddle. If you're going to anybody, it's Grady Dick, RJ Barrett, Jake Puddle. But I see these guys as just swaps as well. Decent enough spot against Sacramento. Not the best defense in the world. But these guys Toronto's really bad. They have no ability to generate any real offense. They're 10.5-point dogs. I have the line at 12.5. So as I look at it, very little Toronto outside of Dick, Barrett, Pirtle. And then Sacramento is sort of like the same thing. They look a little bit better. And you're getting 37 minutes a night out of Murray, Sabonis, DeRozan, and Fox. We have the Q tag on Herter, so we don't know if he's going to be in or not. That will definitely change things a little bit here. I think we could look to Keon Ellis if Kevin Herter ends up out. But it's like 5% to everybody. Murray, Sabonis, DeRozan, and Fox. I like Sabonis the most because he has power forward eligibility. I'd say Fox is probably my number 2. Either one of DeRozan and Murray look the same. And then Monk is fine, but you'd like Herter to be out. Well, that's where we're at, folks. Quick reminder. Highest owned guy on DraftKings right now. Russell Westbrook at 75. Najee Marshall at 60. Peyton Watson at 47. Kada at 40. Nikola Jokic at 30. On the FanDuel side, for right now at least, Najee Marshall at 40, Peyton Watson at 35, Russ at 30, and then a pack of dudes in the 20s. That's Ingram, Kada, Ivy, Garland, and Luka Doncic. Folks, that's going to do it. NFL strategy show coming up next. Those boys will be breaking down this NFL slate. I'm going to go record contenders. I'm going to get my bets out. And then you guys can see me again later today, 5 p.m. on the Deeper Dive. Have a great day. Enjoy your hump day. Another lovely day. I got a lot more to do on the NBA side, so it's going to be fun. Enjoy your day, everybody. Good luck.